Hello, Froggy here, and today we'll be revisiting the Atraks Box. From Patrol, you can see we've got a public event going on. It's been a while since I did anything with Deep Stone Crypt, so we'll be going from the beginning. Easiest way to get out of map is probably just to drop down here and go. Things have changed a bit since they added some more structure under the map in Season of the Splicer, so we can't quite go as direct as we could before, but this stuff doesn't get too in the way. Just gotta go over and then we can just keep on going. The wall here is intangible, and we just have to make our way up. We'll be doing a fair bit of navigator flying, so I'm going to use it freely in this video. It'll come in handy later. We're right around the vault door that normally would block access to the raid now. In the past when we've gone to the Atraks box, we've had to use a box break method, although this time that won't be necessary. I guess while I'm going through this bit of the route, which is about the same as it's always been, for those of you who did not experience early Deep Stone Crypt, the raid featured several enemies that had health bars that were associated with multiple sort of objects. And the way they made this work is the health bar would live on some standard enemies somewhere in the distance, and any damage you did to those objects would get redirected to that entity. There's a... if you end up back at the map, there's another hole somewhere around here. There we go. So, if you find yourself inside, you can escape this way. Anyways, as I was saying, this remote enemy would hold the health bar. And, that was all fine and good, except that we kept on figuring out how to glitch into the area that the health bar was stored. In the case of Atraks, there was a captain that was just chilling in the next part of the map that you would go to, and at the time we had Salvation's Grip, and there was a door breach that you used to be able to do with that, where you would pop some crystals onto the ground, crouch, and get pushed through the door. So you could do that and get to that enemy early and do damage when you aren't supposed to be able to do any. After a few failed attempts to prevent us from reaching that location, Bungie decided to patch the whole thing by sending the captain out into deep space, in a box, inside of a box, and also the captain is invisible for good measure. Naturally, we broke into that as well, but we had to pull out some pretty fancy tricks. The recent development is that, thanks to some great work from Cohaereo, we now know of a funnel that goes right up to that box. Of course it's solid, so we can't really do anything once we get there, but just the novelty of being able to reach that box is enough for me. Anyways, I have not run this part of this raid in a very long time, and I might be a little lost. At least we're in patrol, so we don't have to deal with any of the raid mechanics that would keep us having to find those bubbles periodically. And I think we're pretty much back on track now. Yep. There's the end bubble. Of course the door doesn't work, so instead we're going to have to go around. This is the same hole that I've been using since the beginning, which I can't say for many of the ones that we use along this route. Deepstone Crypt is very unusual in that it almost feels like the people making the map take it personally that we've been exploring outside of it, because I would say maybe 80% of the holes that I've used in Deepstone have been patched. It was getting to the point that I was worried that I wouldn't be able to make videos about it because it would just result in all the holes getting patched, but I think at this point they aren't patching the holes here too often, although there was at least one at some point in the last year or two that got patched inside of Clarity Control, but we'll get there soon. That is, if I can manage to jump on top of this hallway here. For hitting the next load, I generally use these magical floating laser things as a landmark. You can see the glowing beam there, and yes, they do in fact explode, so that's fun. Whoops. Might as well set my sword to help generate ammo for the next time I end up dying. You want to have your max ammo set to low when you're alive, and then set it to high when you die, and you'll come back with a percentage of your ammo regenerated. So you can hit the load zone somewhere around here. Ideally, you'll survive, but if you don't, I'll be showing you how to deal with that in a little bit. It'll be a bit clearer why I'm waiting once that happens. Then we're just making our way along the right side of the map. Plenty of little spots to jump to. You don't have to sword fly that much across this gap, but you know, we're also going to be doing a lot of sword flying, so there's no reason to avoid that. We're coming up on the crypt itself now. The first encounter was home to some of the most egregious holes, and funnily enough, those were not the first patched. The first I was aware of getting patched was a harmless hole in the fourth encounter that let you glance backwards towards the third. The first encounter hole used to let you just walk out of the map and just do whatever there. You could use that to easily read the symbols, avoid the, burning in the room, and all that fun stuff. You can still pretty much do that, but definitely takes a lot more effort now. We're coming up on one of my favorite parts of the raid, where you can hit 3 different load zones along the course of this kind of slanted elevator. For our purposes, we want to load out of map outside of the statue room in Clarity Control. You can do that by hitting the load somewhere around there, and you'll be on the outside. If you wind up on the inside, I'll be showing you various ways you can recover from that, but it is a bit harder nowadays because all of the holes that I used to use to get outside of the statue room have been patched. But luckily there are still options to work with. Either way, next we'll be continuing from the right side of this room. Let's go ahead and take a look at what you should do in the case of failure. Let's say you find yourself back in the map at Clarity Control. We can get back to where we were before and try to hit the load again. This involves doing something that I've been doing since the very first time we broke into this area on I don't know, second day of Beyond Light or something. We're going to head back to the first encounter. Naturally, all those doors are closed, but as long as you don't set a spawn point, you'll spawn back at the default, and for restricted, that means way back at the beginning. If you died to the load the first time into restricted 1, you would have spawned there too. So now those two errors have converged. We'll be using a Sparrow dismount breach to get out of map. This one pops up a lot when we have this sort of gray architecture. We used it to break into and out of the dog room in Seraph Shield, as well as a few other areas in that exotic mission. And once you're here, you can continue as usual. That is a little bit lengthy, so let's look at what it takes to remain inside here. In the past, there used to be a hole up there, but that was patched somewhat recently. That's the one I mentioned that was like maybe within the last 2 years. But it has a twin hole that isn't quite patched over here. There is a very small region that just happens to be intangible. See, I can like walk across it and not even fall in. It's that small, so it is pretty surprising that this is here, but it is pretty handy. Anyways, that brings us right back to where we were before. Give or take a couple jumps. Now that we're out here, it's time to skip the spacewalk area. The box barrier is kind of close here, so it's possible that you'll catch a barrier surf like I just did. Convenient for getting a little bit of extra speed. But from here, the flight is pretty straightforward. You don't want to go to the right because there's a death barrier there. Spent quite a long time randomly trying to fly into spacewalk from here and never had any luck. The death barrier actually extends the entire way. At least the entire way to the wall up ahead. Once you get around here, you'll want to grapple fly upwards, and you can land right on top. There's still a death barrier in front of us, so we might as well take advantage of it to gain a little bit of sword ammo. And that'll just put us back a few feet. Luckily, we can go around the edge of this death barrier if we just go far to the left here before cutting over to the right. You can see the Atraks Box up on the top left there for a moment. And you may recognize this bit of geometry here as the area that you would use to break out of the map from Spacewalk to go to the Atraks area, or vice versa. Naturally, that means we can drop down to get the chest, but that's all in-map, so let's just look at the result. Turns out you get nothing if you open the chest from patrol. Oh well. I didn't set any spawn points, so I'll spawn right back over here. And I need to keep in mind that the death barrier is still there. Well, more free ammo, I guess. Going to want to gen back to full before we make the flight to the box anyways. This time we won't take the detour to Spacewalk, as tempting as it may be. I will take a moment to point out the old Atraks area. I think you used to find her around this direction. I think in the big room to the right by that kind of yellow cylindrical thing. I know you used to be able to do some damage through the wall with the Warlock Arc Super that I forget the name of because I haven't used it in so long. But yeah, anyways, that's where you used to find the captain. Nowadays, the captain has been relegated to that box way out in the distance. That one, in fact. You may recognize it as the same as the box they put around the box for the Crypt Security Vandal, and the same sort of thing that they use in Fallen Shield and Grasp of Avarice. I'm going to be heading up here to a little landmark that I like to use to line myself up with where the funnel is. It is a rather narrow funnel, so it can be quite difficult to just hit it if you're going upwards. Let's see. Oh, there it is. There's some intangible platforms that can kind of get confusing here, but I don't like to use invisible things to line up, so. Yeah, about the center of that. Where is the visible ground? Oh, there it is. So, of course, that part is not solid. Alright. So if you're standing on the edge of this platform, right in the middle, and you fire a grapple shot forwards, it will land directly under the funnel. And then we can do some grapple flying to get to the top. Well, in 30 seconds, I guess we can. Anyways, there is not much clearance when you're trying to get into this thing, so you're going to have to grapple climb a little bit differently. You see, the Guardian cannot look directly up, so you're going to want to pull a 180 in between every shot to keep yourself aligned. Otherwise, you'll drift a little bit too much in one direction or the other, and you might miss the funnel entirely. As you go up, the audio will change a bit as you get outside of the area of effect of the kind of space sound effect. And once you're high enough, you can even spot some chess pieces. At the top, there's luckily a little platform we can stand on. Hello, chess pieces. And now, our final flight. I want a grapple shot to get a little bit of height. And now we just need to fly down an invisible corridor with a death floor below us. Easy peasy. Definitely took me a few tries to get this flight down. You can grapple fly the whole way if you want to, so technically other classes can do this as well, but it'll be a bit painful to do it outside of Titan. And with one last grapple, we're there. Welcome to the Atraks Box. you do get quite a nice view from here. So it would take some time to enjoy it. Normally you couldn't get a view like this without breaking out a box. But thanks to this funnel, we don't have to. Of course, there's no way to break into this box, but oh well. One other happy little coincidence. It turns out that the side length of this box is exactly the same as the max grapple distance, or at least the distance that a grapple will travel when you first fire it. So that's pretty neat. Just goes to show that there's always new things to learn in the game. Anyways, have fun funneling.